Yeah.
Well, a very pleasant good morning to all the listeners of Tambourine Radio 92.7. This is Who Feels It Knows It, a program held under the auspices of the Tobago People's Party. I am one of the hosts here, and the show is a beautiful show because, you know, we have this mesh of handsomeness and beauty. Yeah, you understand? If I may say so myself.
Yes.
I'm sitting with the beautiful Secretary for Tourism, Secretary Burris, and we had our first program yesterday, and from the reports that we've received thus far, Secretary, the people seem to have been interested in the program, and we had some pretty good reviews. We heard that last evening, and we are continuing this morning, and we are talking predominantly about cost of living in Tobago. Yeah. How are you, Secretary? How are you doing?
I am good this morning. Thank you, Bishop Baines, and good morning to Tobago. Good morning, Tambourine listeners. Good morning, those who are on my Facebook Live. I'm happy that we are live at well, and we're broadcasting from Tambourine Radio 92.7 Uptown Scarborough. It is a beautiful day in Tobago today, and we are surrounded by beautiful people in the studio, and we are going to have a very deep conversation this morning regarding cost of living, because it's one of the things that strikes at the heart of why do we elect a government, or why do we elect representatives to go to a government on our behalf. And you know, the average person, anybody, anywhere, cost of living literally is something that you are concerned about in your daily life. Once you have a family, once you have a job, you are trying to get from your representatives, how are you treating with cost of living issues? And I want to start off the conversation by indicating, those on my live, I'm holding up a $100 bill, and the color of the $100 bill, everybody knows the color of a $100 bill. It's a blue thing. So we like blue things. We like blue things because blue things hold a lot of value. And then next to it, I'm holding up a dollar bill. And what color is the dollar bill, Bishop Baines?
Actually, it is red.
Well, okay, because you see that red things don't really have much value, and they put it in the money. So we already see subliminally, they're already sending us the message about value. But I say that to say this, right? Couple years ago, when I was running for candidate Tobago West in the 2020 general election, and in another place where I was on the radio, I had a whole show discussing how cost of living affects us in Tobago. And we want to lay some facts on the table very early. One of the things that we want to lay on the table very early is that it is more expensive to live in Tobago than in Trinidad. That is fact.
That is true.
You don't need to do an economic study to confirm that. We know as Tobagonians that it is more expensive to live on the island of Tobago versus someone who is living in Trinidad. And that is fact. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we have obstacles that prevent us in Tobago from being able to, let's just say, benefit from any cost of living differentials that may be in the space for us to benefit from. And let me give you an example. Someone who is importing goods, barrel, your relatives stuff a barrel outside, they put a set of food stuff in there, they send it down to Tobago, but it does not come directly to the island of Tobago. It goes to Trinidad first. And when it goes to Trinidad, what happens is that we are taxed when it's landed in Trinidad, and then we are further taxed when it comes to Tobago. So that is an added cost that is passed on to the consumer. So whereas someone in Trinidad can get some goods landed in Trinidad, and they only pay whatever that first set of taxes, and whatever the retail price ends up for that good is simply that. In Tobago, we have additional charges to treat with, and that affects the prices of goods. That is a fact, and that is a reality. And one of the reasons why that is the case is because why? We don't do direct importation at our port in Tobago. And further to that, the port in Scarborough is not under the auspices of the Tobago House of Assembly, which is contrary to Act 40 of 19, and not Act 40, Act 37 of 1980. And because when the THA was created, Port Authority was created in 1975. If it is we are saying Act 40 of 1996 determines that the THA should be responsible for airports and seaports. Then in actuality, what should have happened is that the Port Authority Act should have been updated. The Airports Authority Act should have been updated. So those two acts in the updating to recognize the sovereignty of the Tobago House of Assembly in this space would now give management hand over those facilities for the people of Tobago and for the THA to manage. As of yet in 2025, that is not the case. So that port that we see in Scarborough does not belong to the THA. So if in the morning the port decides to raise their charges, to raise the tariffs, to implement new pricing structures, the THA has no say in that. We are not brought to the table to interrogate that.
That is true. And I think the thing is really was one, to my mind, commerce. You understand, so that Port of Spain remains the commercial center of the Twin Island Republic, and secondly, to continue to keep the Tobago people in subservience, because
we are dependent. Because if these things are not passing through a port of entry that can accept international goods, if that port of entry is either a port in Port of Spain or a port in Point Lisas, where does that leave the people of Tobago? We are seeing all of these ships passing, going down to Trinidad, and then these goods have to come back up the road. There are costs associated with all of those movements, and those costs are passed on to the consumers in Tobago. And that has already set up a situation that continues to exacerbate our ability in Tobago to look at how can we, as a Tobago House of Assembly, how can we look as a government in terms of how do we manage the fallout of that. Because what you will have now is, because the cost of goods is higher and people are working for the same salaries as people in Trinidad, and that is a big factor as well. If we already know that the cost of goods and services in Tobago is higher, then how can we peg a minimum wage to what is happening in Trinidad? The people in Tobago cannot peg a minimum wage in Tobago to a situation that exists that we don't get to take advantage of. Because even if we want to argue, that Trinidadians have the ability to go to Trinidad and shop. We could go to Trinidad and go to the groceries, we could go to the curtain stores, we could go to the retail outlets, we could go to the wholesale outlets. That's still a cost for us. We still have to jump on a ferry. We still have to pay a vehicle to go down and collect these goods. We still have to go on a plane, and then we have to suffer to come back. All of that is cost.
No, as you're saying that, a businessman, we were having a conversation, and he was saying to me, his position as it relates to the fast ferry he wasn't excited about. He said, because the fast ferry is just for me to go back down in Burris and spend my money faster. You understand? The money that we receive, because most of the goods and services are in Trinidad.
But you see, that position is dangerous, because you are essentially saying that whatever we earn in Tobago has to go back to the economy of Trinidad.
That is what he was saying. Essentially, that he was saying. So he was saying, while the larger population is excited about being able to get to Trinidad in 3 hours via the ferry.
That would work for someone who's coming here for leisure or for pleasure or something like that.
But he was saying that the Tobagonians, because the Tobago economy really is affected negatively. That's what he was saying in essence. It is affected negatively because a significant percentage of our resources are spent on goods and services in Trinidad.
And that is leakage at the level of our economy, because what we should be doing is buying local. What we should be doing is boosting our local businesses of the people who live here, who we've grown up with. We go to school with their children. We all congregate together in church, or we all recreate together in certain spaces. I'm a Tobagonian. I want to support Tobago first. I want to support Tobago businesses. But if it is that they have the odds stacked against them, where doing business is concerned and ease of doing business is concerned, then that difficulty in doing business is also passed on to the customer. Because when you consider that even to register a business, that whole fiasco with Register General, where you could not get your business registration for weeks because of some administrative situation in Trinidad, you have to understand that people are making decisions across the water that are affecting the livelihood of the people of Tobago. And they don't care who is being affected, because at the end of the day, who is the people of Tobago? We're not going to riot, we're not going to this. And that is why we have to be educated, because the time for us to demonstrate to them that we are fed up of the suffering.
Of course.
We are fed up of the disrespect. We are fed up of the situations that have been concocted to continue to cause hardship to the people of Tobago. We will say on April 28th, we're going to send some people down there, and they're going to be able to stand up in a place. And they can stand up in many places as members of parliament, because being a member of parliament is not just about going in the house and advocating. You now have a direct link to the people who are in charge, who are responsible for alleviating some of the challenges. So, for example, we have a situation in NIB where you have a number of persons who have retired, and because there are challenges with getting their records and whatnot, these people are still waiting for their benefits. Who is advocating on their behalf? These are some of the issues that a member of parliament can now go to a minister of finance or go to whoever's the responsible line minister and say, look, this is a situation that's affecting a number of people in Tobago. We need a solution. What are the things that you would suggest? What is happening? What are the obstacles? Because it's all about working together, but you need people who already know what the challenges are and are willing to advocate. Not people who are willing to sit down and hear that somebody having a problem and do nothing about it. There are problems that affect the majority of us. Our representatives must go down the road and advocate for the solutions to the challenges that affect the majority of us. And certainly part of that advocacy is also bringing solutions to the table, because this idea that people saying 2 seats, can't do anything, and even if they sit down in opposition or sit down wherever, they don't have a voice or they don't have a say, they can stand up. They are not under any chief whip in government. They are under their own whip. They are recognized for their presence, so they can make a contribution to any piece of legislation, any motion, anything that affects the people of Tobago and advance a totally Tobago position.
Agreed. And I think that part of what we have to continue to do, because I have discovered as well, Secretary, that a significant percentage of persons, even at the highest level, do not have an appreciation for the intricacies of the Tobago struggle.
No, they don't.
You understand? So part of what we're doing here, even on this election campaign, is an education process for a lot of people. And I think that one of the reasons why we have to continue with that is because we need buy-in to what we're really trying to do here in Tobago. I do not believe that every time representatives go down to Trinidad, it had to be in a fight. It had to be, you understand what I'm saying? Unfortunately, it has been that because of what it has been.
Let me tell you something. And that is because inherently this relationship has always been lopsided. When I listened to the remarks of the Chief Secretary last night in Bethel, and the Chief Secretary was on fire last night because he brought some very salient issues to the fore. You always are in a position where you feel you have to fight for something if you always feel as if you are the one ending up with the shorter end of the stick.
That is true.
It is that the majority of the resources that are generated by the Twin Island state of Trinidad and Tobago, if the people of Tobago are seeing the majority of those resources being pumped into building Trinidad, and we are seeing Tobago getting crumbs, then naturally the first instinct will be, I am now going to react or respond to this disrespect that I see being meted out to me. And the people of Tobago have fight in their DNA. We know this. But at the same time, we understand that there are mechanisms that exist for us to take the fight to the people who we need to take the fight to. We know that there are mechanisms that exist for us to stand in the platforms and stand on the forums and not just criticize or not just point out where the shortcomings are, but we also are bringing solutions to the table. We have to be assured that the people that we are speaking to are willing to work with us. If it's a situation where regardless of what we say, you are going to do what you want, then you're going to get a different side of Tobagonians, and the long suffering won't come to our end.
Of course, and that is exactly why we are displaced now.
That is
why we are saying that we need to have different representatives, because the truth of the matter is the representatives that come from Tobago East and Tobago West are the servants of the people. Servants in the sense that the people hire them to represent matters that are pertinent to them. That is the job, pretty much. So what we have found is that the actual responsibility is sacrificed at the altar of political expediency.
Yes, that is exactly what
you understand? So you find pertinent matters. We discussed transport at length yesterday. And we're talking about food prices and cost of living. These things are frontline issues.
They are, yes.
That should be independent of party politics, because it represents the livelihood of our people, the
Certainly.
people who hire you in the first place.
Certainly.
You understand? So if after 10 years we still are at the place where we hire you and pay you well to carry out this job, and you have not done it, it's time for us to hire new contractors.
And you have summed up exactly why we are at the place that we're at.
Indeed.
Because, further to that, because again, we'd be talking about cost of living and talking about the fact that advocacy at the level of Parliament is something that has been missing, and that is something that we need critically and desperately, because this is only going to get worse. Food prices are not dropping anytime soon. So what is going to be our response to it? Because certainly, I am one of the people who believe that in a society, doesn't matter at any level you're at, whether you're the cleaner, the CEO, or the president, that if we are not presiding over a society where the average person who is making minimum wage or an average salary cannot go into a supermarket and cannot afford a basic basket or a basic trolley full of food stuff to feed themselves and feed their family, it means that we are failing as a society if we cannot feed our people. And then one of the things that we have to look at, because looking at, for example, Cove Industrial Estate. Now, Cove Industrial Estate, if people didn't know, is listed as one of those special economic zones under the Ministry of Trade. Cove existed long before we came into this administration, and the business model behind Cove was not necessarily manufacturing in terms of food and those types of items, but it was more geared towards technology and inviting persons to invest in. Exactly. So, but the reality is that we had to pivot from that. That didn't happen. So we spent billions of dollars to build out Cove. We had a former Secretary of Finance who sank, I think, his entire political livelihood into Cove coming on stream, and it did not happen. So now we have to pivot. So what has to happen, in my view, is that if Cove falls under a special economic zone type arrangement, there needs to be some enhanced incentives for us to incentivize manufacturing companies to come and set up in Cove. Because if we don't have a situation where we have to import goods, but we know that goods are being manufactured on island to treat with our needs, and we have our export facilities being set up at the port of Scarborough, where Tobago can now start back to export, because years ago, if you look at the history of Tobago and the history of the port, we were the breadbaskets of the Caribbean.
But let me ask you,
we weren't importing goods, we were exporting goods.
Let me ask you this, Secretary. So we have had pretty much 2 decades of P&M rule in Tobago. I mean, we can say that Tobago really does not have any real private sector per se. It almost seems as if it was on purpose, that there was not any resource pumped into developing private sector in Tobago.
As a whole,
that the THA became the largest employer. You understand? And it almost resembles a political strategy to stay in power. It almost resembles that. But I'm saying, so the efforts that were not made to boost, to enhance, and to facilitate the development of a private sector in Tobago seems to have been a concerted political ploy to keep the Tobago people dependent upon the government in power.
And I cannot disagree with you.
You understand?
Because even when I look at the state of the tourism sector, and I don't know if people feel that a Secretary of Tourism where I sit can wave a magic wand and poof, people just appear in the destination. There are different things that feed into the ecosystem that supports a tourism sector thriving. So again, in other destinations, like for example Grenada, sandals is in the end, people talking about sandals and stuff. They import a lot of what is consumed in these hotels, whether it be Sandals, Intercontinental, a Marriott, a Hilton. They import a lot, but they can directly import it into their territories. So they don't have to pay an extra differential because it's coming from some neighboring island and then has to get to them. In Tobago's context, one of the biggest challenges we have is the fact that we cannot import anything. We can't import anything. And if it is that we are not building and investing in these sectors to be able to not just grow our ability to feed ourselves, but also grow our ability to be able to supply all of the ecosystems that require supplying. Because, for example, I'll give you a classic example.
Hold your example, Secretary. Hold your example. We need to take a break. Those of you who are listening or viewing, we need to take a break. We're going to be right back. This is Who Feels It, Knows It, here on Tamarind Radio.
Do you have problems remembering the most basic thing? Do you have
Well, I need to pray for Roderick. I don't even know who Roderick is, but clearly Roderick got up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. So Roderick, wherever you are, God bless you, child of God. Yeah? Let's pray for the people who is the liquor trolls and the liquor haters and they don't want to do their life in us. So, yeah. Yeah, Roderick, you need to chill. Yeah, you need to chill. But guys, thank you for jumping on the live this morning. We're enjoying the conversation because there's so many things that go into determining how we live, and so many things that affect how we.
So we live on YouTube,
and this is time
live
for
on
us
YouTube,
to
not
get
on
some
Facebook.
education.
So you can get the link on Facebook to see the program. We just had a little technical issue this morning, but you know, bluesy cold.
Why do trolls feel as if that when they come and comment on your live or comment on a start or call your name somewhere that somehow that blocks your blessings in life? That doesn't block your blessing in life, you know. I don't know, you need to be a miserable human to come on someone's live to be talking a pack of nonsense this early in the morning. I'm sorry. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do to be able, our job here is to really get people to understand what the lay of the land is. And if everybody understands the lay of the land, then we could all work together for the solutions. Because we're looking for solutions. It's not just about talking and rah-rah-rah in the place and expecting that somehow that will fix the problem. Not fixing the problem and being ignorant in the space, not fixing the problem either. We need to be aware of what we could do, and there's some things that we could do. And we're going to talk about that because we have to build our capacity in manufacturing. Things like bread, for example. Why should we be getting bread from Kiss in Trinidad? You telling me that we cannot set up baking cooperatives in Tobago, and get the people together, because the THA has some resources, which is land and financing, but we need the people to set up the businesses. We need the people to work in the businesses. What stops us from setting up baking cooperatives and put Kiss out our business? Kiss trucks don't need to be coming out to Tobago, dropping bread in our supermarkets. We can bake our own bread. We can bake our own healthy bread. We know about dirt oven. Why we can't expand the dirt oven model and ensure that every single electoral district or every single community has a baking system set up so that we are supplying bread to our neighbors and the businesses in the community. We can do it, Tobago. We are about empowering the people of Tobago. It's not about just sitting in government and drawing a big salary and traveling, as they say, because even the traveling has plenty benefits. Trust and believe that when Tobago becomes an independent nation, you guys have allies outside. The Caribbean is in love with Tobago, and I could tell you they're very much in love with this administration, and they want to help us. They are backing us. They are in our corner, and we have direct access to these networks because your secretary has been working. But we could talk about more things regarding cost of living just now. We're coming back to the show, yeah? Bishop, nice music this morning.
Yeah, man.
Jimmy Cliff, with the
I'm
things,
telling you, nice. Jimmy Cliff is you can't get better than Jimmy Cliff. Welcome back. This is, if you're just joining us here on Tamarind Radio 92.7 Uptown Scarborough, next to the Salmon Tree, boy.
Yeah, the iconic Salmon Tree.
Yes, this is Who Feels It, Knows It, a program held under the auspices of the Tobago People's Party. And we're talking issues here that are pertinent to Tobago. We are on the cusp of an election and so on, and we hope that the conversation will assist you in the decision making that is supposed to take place on the 28th of April. So we were talking, Secretary, about this whole business of cost of living, and I wanted to make the point. I wanted to do my own illustration. I have my own illustration, and this is for the people who on YouTube and Facebook. Now, red $1, blue $100. Which one have more value? Which one have more value? Which one have more value?
When
you determine which one value, vote accordingly.
Yes.
You understand? Just vote accordingly.
That is the message. That is the end of text.
Vote accordingly. Right?
But and even though, that we're laughing about it and thing, to be honest with you, I've been working since I was 17 years old. I am now 39 years old.
Serious?
I'm 39
they
years old.
don't make 39 years as they used to a long time, boy.
No, they don't. They make them nicer.
Yeah,
anyway.
but that is the point. That is exactly what I'm saying.
But I've been working since I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
And I could remember that when you broke a $100 bill in the supermarket,
yes,
and she would have changed to probably last year, maybe 2, 3, 4 days.
Sure.
Now you go and you break a $100 bill and you're lucky to get changed.
No, but you don't have to break it. You don't have to break it.
You just hand it over.
Yes.
Listen to me. Listen, I grew up in the time when dinner mint was 2 for 25 cents at age of a cent. 2 for 25 cents. Yeah. A dinner mint is what? $1 for what?
I don't even know.
I can't even buy a dinner mint.
Listen. This is what happened. My mom asked me. She wanted to change the roof on the house. As when she was alive, and so on, asked me to go to the hardwares and get this estimate for her. So I got the estimate and so on. I think at the time it was upwards $85,000, somewhere there.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we're getting ready and stuff to organize and things. So I was talking to a friend of mine in Trinidad, and he tell him, well, we had this project. So he said, boy, come down to Trinidad. I will take you by this hardware. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I tell myself, I'm thinking about the cost of transportation.
Right?
I'm thinking about the hassle, trying to find a place to stay and all that kind of thing.
Right.
But nonetheless, I decided I will go.
Mm-hmm.
I went to that hardware, bought all the material, right? Mm-hmm. Saved $35,000.
Wow.
This includes transporting the material back to Tobago. Okay. You understand? Okay. So that always stuck with me. And I said, the Tobago people, and what has happened to the Tobago customer is that we have made a mental adjustment to pay the high price because you know.
And listen, and you're saying that example, and we live it every day, where people could say, here, what? I could pay $10 for something in Tobago, but in Trinidad it is $2, it is $3.
Yes.
And to me, why is it that it seems as if there is the act is deliberate to keep Tobago people suffering?
That's the point.
Because I don't understand.
That $65,000
should have money in Tobago.
That $65,000 should have gone into the Tobago economy. But you're forced to go because
and that is craziness.
Yes.
Because essentially what you're saying here is, buy in Trinidad, the prices are better. But then we complain about the state of the economy in Tobago. We complain, we say it's a THA fault, we ain't managing money properly. But how could the money, there's no circulation of money in the economy, because even when the THA, when you look at the budget that the THA gets, the allocation, if the THA is the largest employer on the island, it means that one of our largest expenses is salaries.
Sure.
If it is that we are saying that after the THA gets us a subvention or an allocation from Trinidad, gives it to our employees and our suppliers and stuff in the form of payments and salaries, and they take that money and go back to Trinidad and spend it, then how did Tobago economy grow?
That's the point I was making. How is it Tobago? But you see, I think, Secretary, I mean, I am a kind of grassroots thinker, right? And I just think that the whole thing is a conspiracy to keep the Tobago population at bay. Because they sense that if Tobago really gets going, I remember the late A.N.R. Robinson, I remember him saying that at that time that Tobago was in stasis, You understand? And it's time for there to be some action this time, and that kind of, because Tobago has produced excellence in every discipline you could talk about.
Can't even question.
You understand?
And this is why this election is so critical.
Sure.
Because I want people to understand the history of why we got here. When Dr. Eric Williams went to England in 1961, he went with a constitution written by the People's National Movement. The people of Tobago were not involved in that conversation. So we did not have the opportunity in Tobago, whoever was alive at that time, to say, look, Trinidad, this is what Tobago will want in this constitution. We want these things. We want these things to be able to set up the economy of Tobago, to be able to continue to sustain ourselves or put ourselves on the path to self-sustainability.
Right.
We want the opportunity to exit this union if we choose to, because there may be one day that the people of Tobago and the generations of Tobago decide that we no longer want to be with Trinidad. Right. So we want to have all of that in this constitution.
As an option.
That did not happen. So we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, have been living on the PNM written constitution since 1962, when we gained our independence. And since that time, although there have been numerous committees set up to talk about constitutional reform, they will pay a group of people, they have some focus groups, some conversations. It leads to nothing. Because there has never been any real attempt to address the injustice, the unfairness and the inequity of the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago. There's a knockdown effect to all of that. And the knockdown effect to all of that is Tobago has become expensive to live. Tobago has become inaccessible to the international world. The people of Tobago have access to less opportunities than their counterparts in Trinidad. Crime affects us more closely in Tobago because of how small we are and how we cannot even protect ourselves, whether it be our internal protection, because we don't have responsibility for our police service, our fire service, our prison service, our coast guard. We don't. The people of Tobago don't have responsibility for those things. We can't protect ourselves externally, because even though they say 6 miles administrative, the Coast Guard who's supposed to be protecting the water don't have one boat in Tobago, and they cost when we say, all right, well, all we have is a little pirogue, because we're in Tobago, we ain't no money to buy a boat. We're not responsible for the Coast Guard. It's a central government who has 6 schedule items, which include national security, who's supposed to be equipping the Coast Guard to be able to patrol all our borders, although one boat to give Tobago.
Not one.
So all the drugs coming in, all the guns coming in, all the fishermen complaining, all the crime is happening.
Fishing right there, 2-3 miles of Charlotte.
For years, I have worked at the port, and they've talked about port scanners and whatnot. I hear they say that they put on 2 the other day somewhere in Trinidad, but nothing for Tobago. And in my mind, again, on purpose.
I think we have come to the place now. The time has passed that we know that it is a conspiracy to keep us subservient, to keep us to prevent our upward mobility as a people, and we have to stop it. We can't depend on nobody to fix this for us.
Exactly.
This is why the vote on the 28th is a vote of deliverance. It is a vote of deliverance.
Listen, we suffer too long ago.
Yes.
This is not our hope time. This is our get up and work time.
Yes. Nobody
this is the resolve time, and we resolve to take back Tobago from the people who don't mean well for us. They will come to your yard and they will tell you, oh, we gave you this and we gave you that, and the THA didn't do this and the THA didn't do that. But at the end of the day, we have the responsibility to judge them on their works.
Of course.
When we hold up their scorecard, when we hold up their report card, when we hold up the fact sheet that says to us, okay, we send all it down there because we can't go. Only 2 of you could go. Only 2 of you all have access to cabinet, because they wasn't even inviting our chief secretary to cabinet.
That is true.
That means that the 2 representatives in Trinidad should have been communicating with the chief secretary to find out what are the needs of the people of Tobago in the places that they can affect policy. But maybe I am mistaken. Maybe they could not affect policy. Maybe all they could have done was showed up and shut up, because they were not allowed.
No, but there's not so much mouth when they have
don't have mouth in the wrong place, and that is the sad thing, They just want to come and fool people after the fact, because there are all kind of things to say now. Where was all that fight? Where was all that vigor? Where was all that energy to tell the Prime Minister, look, we need these things for Tobago? Where was all that energy to tell the Minister of Finance, look, Tobago experienced some bad weather that affected our residents, that people's houses got damaged, that our road infrastructure was cut off. We had people in works working, taking night and neck day clearing landslides. And the country is paying insurance for that. Not even Tobago, because Tobago not responsible for paying insurance. But when the insurance money come, you say you're not sending Tobago. That is wickedness. That is wickedness.
We get the oil spill money.
Okay, that is wickedness. That is wickedness. And that is the epitome of people co-signing wickedness. Because we have had situations happen to us in the last 4 years. It's not the THA fault. The THA didn't float no boat in the waters of Tobago to come on our shore.
You know, I thought secretary. No, that's right. That's not
because when you think about
it. Listen, I know that my expectation of the two PNM reps is very low, generally. But I thought, especially when you had the oil spill, that they would have advocated for the resources to come to Tobago, knowing that the Tobago House of Assembly's resource base is very small and they have to find out because it's an immediate problem. We can't go through the red tape. I thought that these two ladies would have advocated vociferously so that we could get some relief. Up to now, we can't get the money.
You just want to look at things from a very dispassionate point of view, but it's hard.
Yes.
Because everything that happens in Tobago affects everybody who lives in
That
Tobago.
is the point. And I can't understand that.
I don't understand how we have, two people are saying that they want their contracts renewed.
Yes.
They want us to put them back there.
Right.
But when the time came for them to stand in defense of Tobago,
right.
You was nowhere wrong.
Yes.
You had no energy to do that. But to stand in defense of your party, you have all the energy.
Right.
You have all the back. You have all the bite. You could point out who belly big and who belly small.
Yeah.
You could say who here long and who here short.
And they should stop. They should stop because they know no queen. They should stop.
At the end of the day, people vote on issues.
Yes.
And what is the issue here? Can we really say that relative to the things that they had responsibility for, relative to the things that they had a direct line to the people who had the responsibility for it, because no secretary could pick up the phone and call no minister and tell them, well, go and fix that, or go and fix that, or go and... We don't have that power.
Indeed.
That is why the MPs are important, because they sit in government with those same ministers, with those same people in charge of those ministries, and they can go to them and say, look, the people of Tobago are having a challenge in this area.
Right.
What can you do? Who is the person we need to talk to? Who the THA need to speak to? How are we crafting a solution to the challenge?
Right.
You need people who will go in parliament, who know how to open them out and talk to big people, because it's not about playing friend, and you don't want to upset somebody, and wherever you cannot send people down, they're afraid to advocate on behalf of the people of Tobago, and that is why Joel Sampson have to go down there to represent the West, and David Thomas have to go down there and represent the East, because these are two men who are not afraid of opening their mouth and telling people what the situation is, and also bringing solutions to the table. It's not just about making noise. It's not just about fighting. It's about ensuring that the representation we get is the best representation that we could get. It's ensuring that at the end of the day, the people who are going down there are advocating tooth and nail, night and day, up and down, 365 days per year for the people of Tobago.
366 in a leap year.
And 366 in a leap year for the people of Tobago. That is what is about.
You know, the thing is simple, The thing is simple in the sense that we cannot rehire the two PNM reps because they are guilty of a breach of contract.
Correct.
They breached the contract.
And poor performance.
Right? Yes, you understand? It's a common sense thing. If you hire a contractor to do some work at your house or whatever.
And they come when they feel.
And not only that,
and they do what they want.
But remember, you give them the parameters of the work.
Course, yes.
You tell them exactly what you want. You make sure you pay them handsomely to get the work done.
Yes.
You
have the expectations.
Right. You furnish them with all the benefits that a worker or a contractors could have. You make sure you sign on the dotted line. Right? It is very clear. And after 10 years,
you coming back to tell me.
But not only that, when you check the project, you understand? That you're behind leaps and bounds plus you're out of pocket.
Because I can't get back my money.
Exactly.
I don't pay already.
So which person with common sense, I think the Tobago population have to understand that this is a common sense vote really that we are asking you to be a part of on the 28th. It's not even so much about partisan politics. It is about common sense. That we cannot afford to continue paying people and continue depending on people to represent us, and they're just not doing what we have hired them to do. So what you do is that you tell these people, these two ladies, Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. But it is very obvious to us that you do not have the capacity, you don't have the constitution to do the work that we have hired you to.
Agreed.
We want the work done.
Agreed.
We want the work done.
And we have wasted too much
time.
Of
Of course. We have been very patient with you. We've been patient with you. We give you 2 cycles to see if you get you. And we are convinced now by virtue of the evidence before us that you cannot do the work. So we are going to hire, and we'll hire a plumber.
Yes.
We'll hire a plumber. You understand? Because there's a lot of leaks in the Tobago system. So we'll hire a plumber.
To fix the leaks.
Yes, we hire a plumber. And then we'll hire a fireman.
Because there are some fires to
Indeed. So we hire a fireman in the east and a plumber in the west. And we are going to put our weight behind these 2 persons that we have. We are going to watch over the project.
When you consider the matchup that we have in Mr. Sampson and Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
When the fireman need water, you gotta check the plumber.
That's a whole.
So we have the right kind of people to go down and advocate on our behalf. Because at the end of the day, Tobago, we are of the view that this situation runs wide and it runs deep.
Sure.
And we can no longer gamble with our future.
Indeed.
We know what the 2 people before they give. We know what they give.
Right.
They have demonstrated to us what they give, what they can give, what is their capacity to give.
Yes.
And we now understand fully, because that's all part of the coming into the education part of the conversation, because we have a responsibility to always, at every point in time, continue to educate the people of Tobago. So the platform could never be about personal attacks. The platform could never be about slinging mud.
Right.
The platform could never be about fear mongering.
Yeah,
People never hear us say, if you vote for PNM, the place going on burn down. No, we will not say that. That's stupidness. What we're essentially saying is judge a man on his merits.
Of course.
And these people, they are up for judgment.
Of course.
And if the judgment is that we have found them wanting, and we have found them wanting, we are well within our rights as the people of Tobago to say, we thank you for your service.
Of course.
We recognize that you probably did the best you could do. And that best that you could do, we need more than that. So we're going to get some people who are going to do more than that. And that is what it's about, people of Tobago. It's about ensuring that on April 28th that you have the kind of people who will take night and make day on your behalf. You have the kind of people who will not be afraid to open their mouth and not just advocate, but to move the needle. If they have to nag a minister to move the needle, they're willing to do that. If they have to go in cabinet and lay a paper there and say, look, this is what the people of Tobago want, they're willing to do that. That these MPs are willing to work with the Tobago House of Assembly to advance the progress of the island of Tobago, because there are some things that the Assembly is not responsible for. When you look at the makeup of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, the THA is responsible for 5 scheduled items. And there are things that are 6 scheduled items that lie at the level of central government, where we have to have those 2 representatives being on the same page as we are.
Indeed.
Because we can't not know what they are going down there to say. We cannot not know what they are looking for on our behalf. And I listen, I could give you so many examples. And the reality is that every decision that is taken at the level of government affects Tobago in some way. And that is why education is so important, and that is why we have to be part of a revolution of education on the island. And I will give all our case in point. Over the last 10 years, the debt borrowing ceiling of the government has been raised 4 times. So in other words, if before you could only borrow $1 and that was the ceiling, they went to Parliament and they raised it to $3, then they raised it to $5, then they raised it to $7, then they raised it to $8.50. But during that debate, nobody stood up on behalf of the people of Tobago and the government of Tobago, which is the THA, and said, well, okay, if central government is raising their debt borrowing ceiling, and they're going to bring good reasons for doing that. They want to advance more development projects. They maybe have an emergency and they need access to more capital. They need to build some more companies. They need to drive the economy. Whatever. You need more money. You don't have the cash, so you borrow. Yes? So you go to the Caribbean version of Island Finance or whoever, you get the money. If the central government raised their borrowing ceiling 4 times, where is the raising of the borrowing ceiling of the THA? The THA is still pigeonholed to the borrowing ceiling that we had since beginning of time. So that we don't want to advance our development agenda. It's not about just arguing for money down there, because if all they don't have it to give, all they can't give. It doesn't matter how much we bought for the money, we're not going to get it. But if it is that we are respected as government in Tobago, responsible for advancing the dreams and aspirations of the people of Tobago. And it means that, for example, I build in a house. I don't have the cash in my pocket every week to go and buy a pallet of blocks and put on, buy some cement and put on, buy some steel and put on. If I go like that, I will spend my whole life trying to build this house. But it's easier for me to get some money borrow and buy all the things I want to buy and build the house nice and then pay back the loan. Tobago can even borrow the money, build Tobago nice, and it's easier for we to borrow money to build this place and pay it back. Because you know why? We will invest the money. We will grow the private sector. The construction sector will boom. We will invest in public infrastructure projects that are going to create jobs. Because the purpose of being in government is to generate revenue, create jobs, create a safe society, ensure that our education system is world class so our people can grow up and get access to opportunities to become the best versions of who they are. If your government not doing them things, and if you look around and everybody had to put burglar proof on their window because crime skyrocket, where old people cannot live in peace in their house because people are invading old people's homes and killing them. If it is the average person can't line past a certain hour in certain places no more because the crime is so large. You telling me you want an next chance to go in government to do what? Crash this place? The place done going down in flames. And you are not the man to fix it because you are the man that light the fire. And we are saying that we're sending a plumber to out the fire. Because part of what we have to do in this Tobago here is cover ourselves.
Yes.
And we have to cover ourselves. We have to cover we island. Cover ourselves.
It is really offensive that the people who pretty much contribute to the problem now presenting themselves as the solution. I mean,
you have we in this.
I'm telling you.
It bleeds my heart. It bleeds my heart to look at the state of the economy. It bleeds my heart to look at where our tourism sector could have been if we had a caring government. Imagine this government, our two MPs know that Tobagonians suffering to get flights to come. I will always come back to that issue. Where were their voices? Where was them to say to the Minister of Finance, look, it's after COVID, all the other Caribbean destinations are increasing their numbers because they have more flights coming. Let us do something for Tobago. The THA has tried to negotiate with Cal. We negotiate behind closed doors. We negotiate in the public space. We've had meetings. We say, look, we need the airlift. Our hotel plants need the people to come. It's not just about domestic visitors. It's about international visitors too. It's about getting Forex into the space. We have a Forex problem. The way to solve it is to get people to come in to spend their Forex in the destination. Nothing. Not a one. Nothing to say. Nothing to even mama guy us into thinking that you're trying to solve the problem. You don't even waste your time to mama guy. No, man. Don't come now and play. You care about me. You don't care about me. You don't care. You have demonstrated that you don't care. And that is fine. If that is all you could have done, you did your best. It is time for us to move on. It's time for the people of Tobago to move on. And people of Tobago, we're saying that on April 28th, you have to move on. Blue is the code. A $100 bill is worth more than a $1 bill.
Of course. It is that straight.
Immediate.
Yes? I mean, we are 2 minutes to the top of the hour. And, time always seems to fly at Tambourine Radio when we're talking sensible thing. Why time just fly here? I don't know. We ought to talk to Mr. Leacock about this clock on the wall or something. But anyway, it has been one of them kind of program. I don't know, but you're feisty this morning, Secretary.
Well, listen,
you're generally feisty, but
when you get some good Tobago chocolate tea and bring her Benjamin good morning, I had to come back and get some bread from No Excuses. So when you're in Scarborough and you want your dirt oven bread, you have to go by No Excuses, and that is how we are operating Tobago. No excuses. Don't bring no excuses to us. It's an election time. It's a serious time. And Tobagonians, this decision that you are going to make is going to affect your lives and your livelihood for the next 5 years. You need to choose wisely. You need to choose representatives who are going to go down there with all your love, all your prayers, all your support, all your best wishes at heart. These are men that you could reach on the road and you could tell them your problem and they will stand up and listen. Because at the end of the day, they know that every single time they stand up in that parliament, that they have the force of 60,000 strong behind them. They know that they are advocating fighting for the things that affect every single Tobagonian. Cost of living, crime, access to educational opportunities and other opportunities, access to sustainable jobs, access for people to be able to build their homes and to be able to access the best prices in Tobago, to be able to build their homes and to build their way of life. These things are basic things that the people of Tobago deserve. Don't let your money sleep out. They are the ones going to go there and say Tobago people need a living wage. This minimum wage thing ain't working for us because we know it's more expensive to live here. These are the people who are going to stand up on your behalf and going to stand firmly, resolutely, every day, all day, continuing to advance the cause of 60,000 strong to ensure that they can assist, they can be part of the revolution of making Tobago the greatest city island on the planet. And that is what it is. That is the job, and they're going to get the job done.
And that's a wrap.
Yeah.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap. You've been listening to Who Feels It Knows It here on Tamarind Radio, and this is a program, of course, under the auspices of the TPP. We are going to be back again tomorrow, God's willing. So stay tuned. Keep it locked now. This is the place. This is the place. This is the place. We gone.
Take care. Hi, guys.
All right, people.
I hope you guys had a good time this morning. I feel like if we're always so short, like when we start to get talking, it's because we live the reality, you know.